The first thing I remember is the sound. Not the gunfire, not the shouting, but the silence that came right before it. That strange, heavy silence, the kind that presses against your chest and tells your body something terrible is about to happen, even before your mind understands it. The sun was just rising, painting the horizon in soft orange light. For a moment, the world looked peaceful, almost beautiful, and that was the lie. War often begins with beauty before it takes everything else away. My fingers were tight around my rifle. Too tight. My gloves were soaked with sweat, even though the morning air was cold. I could hear my own breathing inside my helmet. Fast, shallow, uneven. I told myself to slow it down. Inhale, exhale, just like training. Around me, the men I called brothers were crouched behind broken concrete and burned-out vehicles. Their faces were tense. Some stared forward with hardened eyes. Others whispered quiet prayers. A few stared at nothing at all. We had been told this would be a quick operation. We were told we had the advantage. We were told many things before the shooting started. Then the first explosion hit. The ground shook so violently it felt like the earth itself was screaming. Dust filled the air, thick and choking. The sound came next, gunfire ripping through the silence like tearing metal. Shouts, orders, screams. And just like that, the moment arrived. The moment where the boy I once was disappeared forever. As I pressed my body against the cold ground, heart pounding, I thought of my mother's voice. I thought of my childhood bedroom. I thought of how simple life used to be. I didn't know then that this moment would follow me for the rest of my life. I didn't know that even years later, in quiet rooms far from any battlefield, I would still hear echoes of that morning. Because war doesn't end when the fighting stops. It stays. And this is the story of how I became a soldier. I grew up in a small town where time moved slowly and dreams felt far away. The kind of place where everyone knew your name, your family, and your mistakes. A place where the roads were dusty in summer and muddy in winter, and opportunities were limited. My father worked hard. Long days, longer nights. His hands were rough, cracked from years of labor. He didn't talk much about his feelings, but I saw everything in his eyes. Exhaustion, pride, and worry about the future. My mother carried the home on her shoulders. She smiled even when she was tired. She believed in quiet strength. When things were difficult, she didn't complain. She adapted. As a child, I watched them and learned an important lesson early. Life does not promise fairness. It only promises challenges. I was not born brave. I was not born strong. I was just a boy with questions and dreams that felt too big for the place I lived in. At night, I would lie in bed listening to distant trains passing through town. I imagined they were carrying people toward something greater, somewhere meaningful. I wanted purpose. I wanted direction. I wanted to become someone my parents could be proud of. When I first saw soldiers in uniform, something inside me shifted. They walked differently. They stood taller. They seemed to belong to something bigger than themselves. To a young mind searching for meaning, that mattered. I didn't understand war back then. I didn't know about loss, fear, or the cost of obedience. I saw only the surface, the discipline, the respect, the idea of serving something greater than my own small world. When I told my parents I wanted to join the military, my mother cried quietly. My father said nothing for a long time. Then he nodded. "Whatever you choose," he said, "choose it fully." And I did. Military training does not begin by building strength. It begins by breaking you. The first weeks were a shock to the body and the mind. Sleep was short. Days were long. Every movement was controlled. Every mistake was corrected. Loudly. They stripped away our individuality. Our hair. Our habits. Our comfort. We were no longer who we used to be. At first, I hated it. My muscles burned constantly. My feet blistered and bled. My lungs felt like they were on fire during long runs. The instructors pushed us beyond what we thought were our limits, then pushed again. Some nights, I lay in my bunk staring at the ceiling, wondering if I had made the worst decision of my life. Men quit. Some broke down. Some were sent home. Every departure was a reminder. Not everyone makes it. But slowly, something changed. The pain became familiar. The discipline became routine. The voice inside my head that once said, "I can't," started saying, "One more step." I learned the power of teamwork. I learned that strength does not always mean being loud or aggressive. Sometimes, it means enduring silently. The men beside me, once strangers, became my support. When one of us struggled, the others carried him forward. When someone wanted to quit, we reminded him why he started. Training didn't make us fearless. It taught us how to move forward despite fear. By the end, when I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. My eyes were harder. My posture was different. My confidence was quieter, but stronger. I had become a soldier. Or at least, that's what I thought. Because training prepares your body. War prepares your soul. The day we deployed, the air felt heavy. No one joked much. Conversations were short. Everyone was lost in their own thoughts. As the aircraft lifted off, I stared out the small window at the land shrinking beneath us. I wondered when I would see home again. I wondered if I ever would. The first time we entered a combat zone, my senses were overwhelmed. The heat, the dust, the constant tension. Every sound felt threatening. Every shadow felt alive. Nothing looked like the movies. War was messy, confusing, unpredictable. My first firefight lasted only minutes, but it felt like hours. My hands shook as I returned fire. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would break my ribs. I was terrified and ashamed of that terror. Then I saw a man next to me fall. No dramatic music, no slow motion, just sudden stillness where life had been seconds before. That was the moment war became real. We kept moving. We had orders. There was no time to grieve. At night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw faces. I replayed moments, wondering if I could have done something differently. The hardest part wasn't the danger. It was the moral weight. Knowing that every decision carried consequences. Knowing that survival often meant loss for someone else. That knowledge never leaves you. In war, friendship forms faster and deeper than anywhere else. The men beside me knew my fears, my habits, my weaknesses. They knew when I was struggling without me saying a word. We shared food, stories, silence. We celebrated small victories. A safe patrol, a quiet night, a letter from home. We protected each other without hesitation. I remember one night when we were ambushed. Chaos erupted. Bullets tore through the air. I froze for a split second, just a second too long. Then someone grabbed my vest and pulled me down. He saved my life. Later, when things were quiet, he shrugged it off like it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. It was everything. We lost men too. Each loss carved something out of us. We carried their names, their jokes, their unfinished dreams. We promised to remember them. And we did. The battle that changed me forever came without warning. What was supposed to be routine turned into chaos. The enemy was prepared. We were surrounded. The air was thick with smoke and dust. Communication was broken. Time lost meaning. I saw courage like I had never seen before. Men running toward danger to pull others to safety. Voices shouting orders even as fear shook them. I felt fear unlike anything before. But I also felt clarity. In that moment, everything mattered. Every decision. Every second. When it ended, the silence returned. And it was unbearable. We counted heads. Not everyone answered. Something inside me broke that day. Something I never fully got back. Coming home was harder than I expected. People thanked me. They called me a hero. They had no idea what I carried inside. Loud noises made me jump. Quiet moments felt heavy. Sleep was restless. I was home, but part of me was still there. Over time, I learned to live again. Slowly, carefully. I learned that strength also means asking for help. That healing is not weakness. I learned that war leaves scars you cannot see. And that remembering matters. I was a soldier once. I learned about courage, fear, sacrifice, and brotherhood. I learned that peace is precious, and that freedom is never free. If there is one thing I want you to remember, it is this. Behind every uniform is a human being. Behind every story of war is a lifetime of consequences. And behind every act of courage is a cost that lasts long after the battle ends. May we never forget that.